I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is James Richardson.
I bet you anything there was more sustained attention. It's impossible to measure. More of the viewership, more sustained eyeballs on the halftime show as a proportion of total viewers than on any one of those ads, or even on all the ads combined. Because you and I might be fuddy-dudds who watch the ads, but nobody under 30 could give a crap about the ads. They're interested in the halftime choreography because that was entertainment, and that, Kendrick Lamar was mesmerizing. None of the ads come anywhere near that.
Dr. James Richardson is the founder of Premium Growth Solutions, a strategic planning consultancy for emerging consumer packaged goods brands. As a professionally trained cultural anthropologist turned business strategist, he has helped over 150 CPG brands with their strategic planning, including Dude Wipes, Once Upon a Farm, Dr. Squatch Soap, Trü Frü, Earth Breeze, Dr. Bronner's, Happy Egg, Made Good, and many others. His thoughts have appeared in Inc. magazine, Business Insider, Food, Business, News, and numerous business podcasts. My interview with James Richardson is coming right up, but first.
My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big ROAS man. Then he just kept saying things like, the bigger the ROAS, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means calculating a return on ad spend. One thing's for sure, I'll be known as the ROAS man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
When you check out at the pharmacy, you see the journey from idea to medicine, thanks to our intellectual property system, or IP for short. IP safeguards inventions, like a new way to prevent seizures or lower cholesterol. And IP supports competition from other brands, then lower cost generics, which are 90% of prescriptions filled in the US. Innovation, competition, lower costs, thanks to IP. Learn more at phrma.org/IP Works Wonders.
James Richardson, welcome back to On Brand.
Oh, thanks for having me back, Nick. I must not have said anything too offensive.
No. We waited the requisite period of time and decided that we were safe to visit with you once again.
Awesome.
So I am excited to chat about your work. We were chatting beforehand and I said, feel free to be as topical as you want. We're not banking episodes for a couple months down the road. And you said, I don't know if I'm that hip. I'm Mr. Evergreen Strategy Consultant. And, maybe it's because I would maybe like to think of myself in a similar vein. But it seems like a harder thing to do. So how do you stay evergreen in a constant state of flux?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, actually. The thing that I help my clients with is, and I try to do it myself in my own business, is to anchor myself in numbers. And this is where I think the best marketers in the world, they do that. So, and they're usually running businesses. They're usually managing the P&L of large businesses, right? So I've actually done consulting for those folks in a prior stage of life with less gray hair. And so that, the ability to know what your number targets are, and we don't have to get into a tangent on marketing KPIs, but because there shouldn't be many. I'm a firm believer there should be very few. All the noise that, ad measurement companies put out is nice, but the reality is there's very few. The most important was, did you add incremental households you weren't going to add already? If not, then your marketing money was probably wasted. Or at most, it was glorified expensive reminding. Actually, that's most of the stuff on the Super Bowl. That's what it was, right? I mean, I actually liked Doritos' ad. It was one of the better ones. Not the best, but it was fun.
Well,
But almost the majority of the U.S. population has had a Dorito. So it's by definition just reminding. That's all.
Well, I was going to ask, how does someone like you watch something like the Super Bowl where, people like us are standing around watching the ads as much as the game?
Mhm.
My daughter marveled at here this past week because she's real into the game. And then I was shushing her while the ads were on. And she's like, you almost act like this is as important. And I'm like, well, it's kind of what I do. But when you talk about like glorified reminding, what else do you see there?
Well, well, that's important, by the way. When you're a $1 billion business,
Yeah.
reminding is actually kind of important because slowly they'll forget about you, right? But I work in the exact opposite of the continuum where it's actually about initial trust. It's like, why should I even care to remember you? Or why should I bother to try you, which is even tougher, right? So those are the two. I mean, and early stage marketing is very difficult. I mean, if you're anybody listening who thinks that they have some secret sauce, maybe you do, but I would say join a startup, and if you can double their sales off their baseline, then call me and I'll put you on my podcast because I don't bump into those people very often.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's an important point because, as you said in your non-tangent about KPIs, was that there should only be a few. And I wonder if you'd say more about that because I feel like we cover the first part of that of the finger wagging of need KPIs. And then the conversation just either drops off or it goes different directions. So how do we do that better?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little kind of methodology I concocted because nobody else teaches it. It's pretty intuitive. And it's based on my, well, it's really based off of the work of Byron Sharp, who probably doesn't like my book, but because I talk about heavy users, but 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 I agree. He and I are in lockstep, and they've done the work in Boss Ehrenberg Institute. Adding households is really the key to growing brands, and if you're not doing that, there's only a few categories where you can continue to grow and not add households. And one of them is soft drinks because you've got this weird, you can go from impulse buying to buying 3 cases a week. I mean, there are very few categories that people actually consume that much.
Yeah.
That's a huge continuum, right? So you can kind of get away with it there. But in most categories, you've got to add households to grow. When there's no repeat purchase, obviously, that's your only hope. It's just adding people. And that what you have to do, what anybody can do is measure the baseline growth rate, and there's obviously companies like Numerator that do this for CPG brands. But you can even do it yourself. So I actually teach, this will tick off all the trained marketers with their big budgets who listen to this, because I teach my clients to do stuff on Pollfish, which is a massive professionally managed polling platform with 1 million plus people. And you can actually measure with the right question design your household penetration to get that baseline measured. It could even be in your home city, right? So, because like most of my clients, they started in one town. Dude Wipes started in Chicago handing out singles.
Yeah.
That went on for 2 years until they realized, oh, wait, we sold 100K. Then they went on Amazon. But you can measure your household baseline trend. You basically know what your general business operations are yielding. Because this is the thing that consumer marketers never want to really admit, is that, especially in consumer packaged goods, just being on the shelf gets you it just staying on the shelf actually continues to get eyeballs, continues to add households at a very slow rate.
Yeah.
So the sales guys are like, yes, we don't need you. Well, yeah, but I've measured the baseline of dozens of my clients, and it's pretty creepy slow. Right? So that's your baseline. But when you get like a liquid death machine, entertainment marketing, or Dr.
Yeah.
Squatch, you add that onto the mix, that's when you start to see the bend on your baseline. It's like, wow. Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
Which takes us back to the Super Bowl. Because you and I might be fuddy-duds who watch the ads, but nobody under 30 could give a crap about the ads. They're interested in the halftime choreography because that was entertainment. And that, Kendrick Lamar was mesmerizing. None of the ads come anywhere near that.
Oh, and speaking of households added and KPIs that matter, my wife actually told me that the sale of flared leg jeans have been on the rise since the halftime show. So if that's we're talking about KPIs, I'd say that probably makes the cut.
Well, there's more people. I bet you anything there was more sustained attention. It's impossible to measure. More of the viewership, more sustained eyeballs on the halftime show as a proportion of total viewers than on any one of those ads, or even on all the ads combined.
That's a really good point.
That's what America wants: is raw entertainment, dancing, hip hop.
Yeah,
right. That's peak attention grabbing, and this is why it's harder and harder to get. If you look at how halftime has overtaken the entertainment value, off field in the Super Bowl. I mean, it's totally trounced the ads.
And I thought too, when you mentioned the sustained viewing of the halftime show, I thought as I was sitting there watching it again, fuddy-duddies, how we watch things. But I saw kind of the throbbing Apple Music logo with the beat in the corner, and I'm like, that's great.
They had the only decent placement.
Yeah.
Oh wait, that cost $40 million. Okay.
Oh yeah. So
whatever.
So we'll maybe put an asterisk by decent, saying
that it's. But maybe you would know. Is this not the first time Pepsi and a CPG soft drink company didn't control halftime? I mean, I sat there and going, Apple got halftime?
See, that's what I was trying to, and then
I don't think that's ever happened.
So it is if it's not new this year, it's new recently. But really, I was also thinking strategically with that placement, because the other place that you see it with similar challenges in viewership and distracted, refracted media is Saturday Night Live. They are the owner of the musical guest. And that placement there. So it seems like a similar overall strategy.
Yeah, I just think that, to me, it reminds me of the fact that the standard for attention getting and sustaining attention continues to, in a digitally disintermediated, saturated environment, has, even since the pandemic, just gotten higher and higher. And so it's not... The idea of doing consumer marketing for a low awareness brand, which is my client's reality, is just terrifying. Because the trademark itself is so poorly known that it just doesn't even hook in your brain. I mean, it's a neuroscience issue. It just literally is like right down the trash bin. And so you have to combine an experience with marketing, the trademark, and a story. So what Dr. Squatch has done really well is tell the story of why ordinary dudes should care about, better soap. Because that required he almost had to have a story because the product itself was so ridiculous. I mean, a lot of people have forgotten that, $7 bars of natural cold pressed soap, they've been for sale for 40, 50 years in natural and health food stores.
Yeah.
There's if you go to most health food stores, a little soap loaf and a dirty knife, and you sit there and cut it. And it's almost the same price per ounce as Dr. Squatch. Might even be a little more. because it's probably some local artisan making it. And but this stuff never moved. It was when I was doing research, consumer research for Whole Foods, the store people would call it hippie soap. So it's like Dr. Squatch did not invent cold press soap. It was in thousands of gift shops all over the country, but never moved. It took an underserved audience and a story to unlock it. A really entertaining story. Not a bedtime story, but like a really entertaining shock and awe story. And I think that's what holds attention. That's what gets attention and holds attention today. It's that is a standard no advertisement can really meet. I'm sorry. Doritos did a pretty good job, though, I had to say. And that was a very high production value. But still, and they understand that. That's why they're, that was a story-driven ad. But still, there's something about, I also think there's something about social media storytelling, which is very much, we're now assaulted with other humans we don't know, like hundreds of them a day talking at us and storying us and narrating at us. And it's pretty new. Like, I didn't grow up that way. I mean, it's just like, so now there's this higher standard. My teenagers have it. The standard of what it takes to sustain their intention is they can't even make it through the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It doesn't move fast enough. So it's just a tough world to be an emerging brand. It would have been much easier to do this like 30 years ago.
On Brand will be right back after this.
My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big ROAS man. Then he just kept saying things like, the bigger the ROAS, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means calculating a return on ad spend. One thing's for sure, I'll be known as the ROAS man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Would you wear the same shoes for every occasion? Or rock the same outfit 7 days a week? Of course not. Your style is better with options. Your investments could be too. Cboe Index options give you access to various contract sizes, global trading hours, and potential tax advantages. That's a good look for any portfolio. If you're ready to invest in style, head to betterwithoptions.com. There are risks associated with Cboe Company products. Review the disclosures and disclaimers at cboe.com/US_disclaimers.
Now, back to the show. Well, to that point, as we look at that and, and talk about innovative brands, CPG brands like Dr. Squatch, like Liquid Death, who you mentioned earlier and who was there reminding in the Super Bowl, and with new products for some new households too. So it looks like they're into the tea game as well. But as new brands are emerging and seeing exactly what you said of this would have been easier 30 years ago, where do you start? I mean, I feel like those of us that teach also, know that we've talked about when it comes to CPG, the importance of shelf and standing out, but that dynamic has shifted. But where do we actually start with that work today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge is that you need a higher standard of extroverted, interactive people in your early stage company. It's generally the founder. I hate to say it. It's not some marketing person they hired. I made that sound like a swear, but I mean, it just in fact, I just posted on LinkedIn earlier in the week that the biggest problem with early stage marketing is that they hire graphic designers. Essentially, I love graphic designers, but they're not storytellers. And I've worked with them, and most of them are as introverted as I am. Like, you don't want me sampling your early stage product because it'll go nowhere. I mean, after 30 minutes, I'll just get tired of talking to people.
I don't know if it'd go nowhere. Just go a different place. I think
no. They'll. Yeah. Anyways, so it'd be bad. So don't hire me to be your demo person. But I mean, the point, the reality is that you need a very, very rare form of high energy person to do things like field marketing, field work, right? And that's where you can start. So I still believe in the physical art of interactive sampling is still your best bet as an undercapitalized early stage company. Because I mean, you do not have money to push a message out.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Squatch. I mean, Dr. Squatch was in the low 8 figures when they did their initial YouTube experiments in the fall of 2019. Now they spent like a couple months optimizing their anchor video and chopping it up and getting it out there. And there obviously was an initial expense, 6-figure expense to get the ads going. But once they started working, the cash comes in so fast, they don't care what you're spending. That's not a reality for most of my clients. They don't even have the initial capital to do what I just described, right? So you've got to use human interaction because it's still the most powerful memory making device. And this is where a lot of folks in early stage CPG I think because a lot of them actually are innovators, they're not persuaders, they're not charmers, right? But that's actually those are the people who are the best at getting out there, not only operating the brand, but getting out there. And I mean, that if you met the dude team, they're totally extroverted. I mean, they imbue I'm going to convince you to buy this butt wipe that you have no reason to buy. No, seriously, like you have to. I couldn't do it. I mean, my brain is analytical, right? I can't. That's just not. I'm not built for that. Totally not built for that.
And I loved earlier you shared Pullfish as a tool, and we're afraid of the mass exodus of
You're going to get hate mail.
Yeah. No, but I was going to add in that, we were both beforehand making sure that our books weren't in reverse orientation on the video. But I was going to point out that my book is all about scrappy marketing. So I love the idea of using tools like Pullfish, because I think when it comes to doing Mr. Evergreen strategy consultant work, we tend to think that those are big, to your point, expensive, scary, hard to use tools. And we think so we just steer clear and end up not doing anything.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, that reminds me of that reminds me of consumer research. Oh, we're not big enough to do that. What the? Are you nuts?
Yeah.
I mean, that is literally the craziest thing I've ever heard. I have a PhD in behavioral research. I'm an anthropologist. I'm a professional interviewer. So I worked at a market research firm for 15 years. I know survey design. I know all that stuff. So I know the pro level, and I know exactly how to do it scrappy. And I'm telling you, you can do it scrappily. So it ain't rocket science.
So beyond like the tools like Pullfish, as you talk about being a professional interviewer, what are some of the things that someone who maybe is overcoming being one of those, oh, we don't have the budget for that, and is listening to this and is thinking, okay, let's give it a shot. What should they be thinking about from a design and an interview perspective?
Shut up and listen. Now you laugh, but you should meet some of my clients. So, the amount of energy and kind of ego it takes to believe that your early stage business is going to go anywhere is pretty close to the threshold of insanity. So these folks are usually the worst people to do an interview with their fans. Now, some of them are good, but when I work with clients on consulting engagements, I have their mid-level people. I might even have their VA do it. I've trained all sorts of people to do great interviews because it's not that hard. You need somebody who actually doesn't want to talk about the brand, which is usually not the founder.
Right. And as we talk about that skill set of the extroverts that are great at, like on the front of house sampling side, it's probably not, like you said, the same person. I love the idea of
that's why I tell people
training someone's VA.
Don't do your research at your demo table. I don't know why that to me, that's obvious as a professional researcher. Like, oh my God, those are two incompatible. One is promotional moment and the other one is a listening moment. Like, obviously they're not happening at the same time unless you are conjoined twins at the head. Right. Just like, I don't know what. So yeah, you listen. And the second thing, very briefly, is you only ask open-ended questions. And this is actually a professional skill.
Yeah.
You may actually have it already because you've been doing 2,000 podcast interviews, right? And you would have noticed by now that if you asked like FBI yes or no questions, the conversation gets really cold.
It gets really cold and it gets really it's really short. You're going to have trouble filling your time.
If you just want to do a 5-minute recording, that's a great strategy.
Now,
do you believe in KPIs?
Yeah,
now versus what are the important KPIs, sir?
Like you mentioned, it's all so slice and diced out there. Now I'm thinking maybe there is a market for a show that's just yes, no, yes, 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 no, yes. Thank you.
Well, you know why I don't know if you noticed, but that's one reason why Dr. Phil took off.
Oh,
go listen to his whole shtick. It's all yes, no loaded questions.
Ha. Okay. Well, today I learned.
And anyway, so yeah, open-ended questions. And the most important one you kick off with is, why do you keep buying our thing? That question alone doesn't even occur to a founder often because they're so jazzed. They're so inside the motivation that they can't even. And so when I work with clients, and then as part of my work, I have like an entry-level marketing person or anybody really who isn't the founder go and do these questions. They always come back with cool stuff that the founder never even occurred to them. And that's usually where we can start to see the glimmers of an underserved audience, which is why I reached out to you. Right? Usually the underserved audience that will scale your business, they actually they show up a lot earlier than you think, especially in CPG, because we're distributing products, essentially into everywhere. I mean, to Krogerville and Safeway land, So, I mean, random people are absolutely going to bump into your thing. And so the research is often where we can find the glimmer of the new positioning that will be much more useful. And in my world, I have too many founders who are navel-gazing. They have very niche motives. I'll put it politely.
Well, Krogerville and Safeway land makes me smile. And James, it is now my delight to get to ask you for a brand that's made you smile. And I did put the caveat out there that it doesn't have to be a good smile. And you seemed interested in that. So I'm excited for you to take it away.
A brand that's made me smile recently was my client, Dude Wipes, because they launched a Dingle Bells holiday balsam fur wipe. Which is quite pleasant.
When it's called Dingle Bells Holiday Wipe and saying it's quite pleasant, you really don't need to say more than that. Here I am following your advice and shutting up and listening. James, where can folks go to learn more about who you are and what you do?
Well, you can read my book, Ramping Your Brand, for consumer product owners, on Amazon.com, or you could go to premiumgrowthsolutions.com. In fact, I accidentally plugged some courses that I sell on that site. If you go to /courses, I do have a course that'll teach you how to do scrappy consumer research.
Awesome.
And scrappy marketing analytics, which we just discussed.
Awesome. Well, I will link up to all of that in our show notes, which folks can always find at onbrandpodcast.com. James Richardson, thanks for being on brand with us.
And thanks for having me, Nick.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.